The world's largest companies didn't fail because they were small, weak, or malicious. They failed because everyone agreed too much. In the United States, there's a strong belief that decisions approved by many executives, full of charts and long meetings, are safe decisions. But history shows the opposite. When no one questions, the mistake gets a badge, its own room, and an unlimited budget. And the most curious thing is that, seen from afar, many of these choices seem too obvious to go wrong. This video exists for a simple reason. Explaining these decisions as if a child were listening makes the absurdity quickly become apparent. When something needs an overly complicated explanation to seem correct, it usually isn't. Here, each case shows how ideas that were praised, awarded, and confidently defended created enormous losses. Not due to a lack of intelligence, but due to excessive certainty. Throughout the video, it becomes clear why asking, "Does this make sense?" is more powerful than agreeing to avoid appearing ignorant. And there's something even better. Each story leaves practical clues on how to avoid falling into the same traps, whether in business, career, or personal finances. Some answers come quickly, others only make sense after the examples connect. The question that remains is simple. How many decisions in your life have you never questioned because everyone seemed comfortable with them? That answer begins to appear in the very first case. Everyone learns early on that giant brands seem unshakable in the United States, almost as if nothing could get out of control. And that's precisely why this case is so attention-grabbing. In 2012, Mountain Dew decided to open an online vote for the public to choose the name of a new flavor. The idea seemed modern, democratic, and internet-friendly. The company envisioned engaged fans, creative suggestions, and a happy ending worthy of an award-winning campaign. The detail ignored was simple. The internet doesn't work like a corporate boardroom. When you hand over the steering wheel without the brakes, someone will floor it. And that's exactly what happened. The contest became a stage for offensive, absurd, and embarrassing names, pushed to the top by organized groups that just wanted chaos. The brand had to delete everything in a hurry, swallowing an image loss that no one foresaw. This episode teaches something that many people still ignore when thinking about digital business. Participation is not the same as control. Opening up space for the public requires clear rules, filters, and, above all, an understanding of collective behavior. In practical terms, it's like leaving comments open without moderation in a live stream that's too long. Content creators quickly learn that engagement without direction becomes noise. Companies, on the other hand, sometimes take longer to learn. If someone is thinking about launching a participatory campaign today, it's worth looking at examples that have worked, such as voting with predefined options or closed tests with smaller groups. Platforms like Reddit and X show daily that crowds organize quickly, not always to build something beautiful. Ignoring this is betting too high. The most curious point is that nobody at Mountain Dew thought the idea was bad on paper. And that says a lot. Wrong decisions rarely seem wrong at first. They usually come packaged in charts, trends, and pretty phrases. For those who undertake, invest, or create projects, the lesson is clear. Always ask how something could go wrong before asking how it could go right. This habit avoids enormous headaches. And if this type of analysis makes sense to you, it's worth following the channel and subscribing, because many other famous mistakes stemmed precisely from this collective overconfidence. When Tesco decided to enter the United States, many people thought it was only a matter of time before it dominated the market. After all, in the United Kingdom, it was the absolute benchmark for supermarkets. The fresh and easy concept seemed elegant. Smaller stores, ready-made meals, quick shopping, all designed for busy people. The problem is that this logic was designed with British habits in mind and applied to American neighborhoods without real adaptation. In the United States, grocery shopping is a weekly routine, a full cart, the whole family involved. It's not just about food, it's a cultural habit. Tesco bet that efficiency would overcome habit. It didn't. In a short time, empty stores became the norm, and losses easily exceeded $1 billion. This mistake reveals something that goes beyond supermarkets. Knowing the numbers doesn't mean knowing the people. The American consumer values convenience, yes, but also variety, portion size, and visible prices. Just compare chains like Walmart, Costco, and Kroger to see this. Tesco underestimated this detail and tried to educate the market instead of observing it. For entrepreneurs or investors, the practical application is simple. Before copying a successful model, test it on a small scale. Talk to real customers. Observe cues, schedules, what gets stuck on the shelf. A good strategy on paper doesn't withstand established habits. And here's a question worth engaging with. If you owned a foreign company entering the United States, what would you change first? Product, price, or experience? Comment on this, because this answer often separates businesses that survive from those that quietly close their doors. Tesco left the country, but left a clear lesson about strategic arrogance. And this same overconfidence appears in even more serious decisions, especially when numbers start to be manipulated to maintain a pretty narrative. For a long time, Enron was treated as the ultimate symbol of corporate innovation in the United States, appearing in rankings, magazine covers, and speeches by confident executives. On the outside, it seemed like a modern machine, full of brilliant ideas in the energy sector. Inside, the story was far less pretty. The company began to hide gigantic losses using complicated accounting structures, created not to improve the business, but to push problems off the main balance sheet. Those who looked at the numbers believed everything was fine. Those who lived the day-to-day operations felt that something didn't add up. The castle stood as long as no one asked the hard questions. The central point of this case is not just fraud. It's poorly designed incentives. Executives were rewarded for short-term results, even if they were illusory. Financial analysts preferred to repeat the official narrative rather than lose access to the company. Banks profited from fees and turned a blind eye. It's a stark reminder that systems reward behavior, not intention. For investors, the practical application is clear. Understanding balance sheets is as important as understanding the product. Reading simple reports, observing real cash flow generation, and being wary of companies that seem too good to be true helps avoid pitfalls. Books like The Smartest Guys in the Room, they help to see these patterns more clearly. When the truth came out, the collapse was swift. Employees lost their pensions, investors saw billions evaporate, and market confidence took a heavy blow. The most unsettling thing is realizing that many people suspected something, but chose not to speak. This story teaches us that collective silence is costly. If this kind of lesson resonates with you, please like the video, because supporting this content helps keep these stories alive and prevents the same mistakes from being repeated under new names and packaging. And speaking of poorly evaluated decisions, sometimes the mistake isn't hiding numbers, but discarding people who held the future in their hands. In 1914, working in business technology was anything but glamorous in the United States. It was paperwork, large machines, and decisions made more by hierarchy than by vision. It was in this context that NCR fired a young employee named Thomas Watson Sr. The reason was trivial, almost childish by today's standards, an internal disagreement treated as a serious offense. For the leadership of the time, it was just another name crossed off the payroll. The detail ignored is that quick decisions, when guided by ego or rigidity, often have effects that only appear years later. Watson didn't leave defeated. He left free. Shortly after, he ended up at IBM, and there he found space for something that NCR failed to see. Watson believed in a strong culture, constant training, and an obsessive focus on well-executed sales. He transformed IBM into a global benchmark, creating practices that are still studied in business schools today. Meanwhile, NCR continued to exist, but without historical prominence. For those who lead teams, the practical application is straightforward. Before cutting someone, it's worth separating a specific mistake from long-term potential. Growing companies learn to correct people, not just discard them. Good leaders ask questions before making final decisions. This story provokes an uncomfortable reflection. How many competent people are dismissed every year for petty reasons, while positions remain occupied by those who only know how to please their superiors? If you were in the place of that NCR manager, would you have fired or tried to develop the employee? Comment on this, because this answer reveals a lot about how each person perceives leadership. And when hasty decisions meet pressure for quick results, the next mistake is usually even noisier, especially when time and quality come into direct conflict. In the early 1980s, Atari was practically synonymous with video games in the United States. Entering someone's house and seeing a console connected to the television was almost always a sign of the brand. When the movie E.T. It became a cultural phenomenon, and the decision seemed obvious, turn that success into a game and sell millions of copies at Christmas. The deal was closed hastily, with high values and unrealistic deadlines. Development was given only a few weeks, something unthinkable even by old standards. The result was a confusing, frustrating game, far from what the public expected. Stores received boxes and more boxes of cartridges that nobody wanted to take home. This case illustrates a classic mistake that is repeated even today. Confusing timing with rushing things. Atari believed that the strength of the brand and the film would compensate for the lack of quality. It didn't. For those who create products, software, or even digital content, the practical application is clear. Releasing something bad quickly destroys trust even faster. It's better to miss a calendar date than to lose the audience. Companies that understand this prefer short testing cycles, real feedback, and continuous adjustments. Just observe how independent game studios or even companies like Nintendo treat delays as part of the process, not as failure. The ultimate symbol of this mistake became legendary. Trucks full of unsold games were taken to a landfill in the New Mexico desert and buried. It wasn't marketing, it was loss containment. This image perfectly summarizes the cost of miscalculated haste. When decisions ignore human and technical limitations, the burial isn't just of a product, it's of reputation. This was the last mistake on the list, but the logic behind it connects all the previous ones. Decisions that no one questions tend to grow until they become too big a problem to hide. After hearing all these stories, it's hard to pretend that bad decisions are just bad luck. They almost always stem from the same root: collective comfort. When no one questions, when everyone agrees too quickly, the mistake ceases to seem like a mistake. It becomes the norm. The practical application of this is straightforward for anyone living in the United States, working in large or small companies, or even running their own projects. Developing the habit of asking, "Does this really make sense?" already puts you several steps ahead of most. Questioning isn't being negative, it's being responsible for your own future. It's worth thinking about in everyday life. How many decisions do you accept at work, in your studies, or with your personal finances simply because someone above you said it was the right path? How many times have you bought something, joined a project, or followed a rule without understanding the real reason? If these stories have taught us anything, it's that thinking simply avoids big problems. Reading basic business books, observing companies that have failed, and listening to different opinions helps train this critical eye. Small changes in mindset generate enormous impacts over time. So here's the final provocation. The next time everyone agrees, will you remain silent, or will you ask the uncomfortable question? That choice changes entire trajectories. If this content helped you see decisions differently, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning how to think better about business, career, and money. Knowledge is only valuable when it translates into action.